Welcome to Hekman Research 101, where you can start learning about the practices of a wise scholar along with your Hekman research librarians. In this video, we'll be discussing source types. As we do our research, we need to discern what sources will be most helpful and relevant. Part of that is understanding the main types of sources and how they may or may not be able to provide you with the information you need, and when you might want to deliberately use one source type rather than another. The most common way to view source types is by distinguishing between popular and scholarly sources. But what do we mean by those terms? Well, first, popular, in this case, doesn't mean most well-liked or favorite, but rather for the people or a general reader. So, popular sources are written to be read and used for casual information or even for fun. You might think, for example, of the magazines you see at the grocery store checkout counter or your favorite YouTube channel. Scholarly sources, on the other hand, are written by and for scholars or academic researchers, like your professors. These may be less familiar to you, but you will often be asked to use scholarly sources during college, so it's a good idea to get to know what they look like. Here are some examples of scholarly sources. Although all of these are directed to scholars in different subject areas, they have a few common characteristics. First, they are usually peer-reviewed. This is a term that refers to a specific publication process scholarly journals go through, in which article drafts are submitted and sent out to other experts in the subject, their peers. These peers, people like your Calvin professors, then carefully critique the article to decide if it fits the standards of research and whether it should be published or not. Sometimes the drafts will be returned for further revision or even rejected. So if a published source is peer-reviewed, then we know it's been judged as quality research. Now, not all scholarly sources are peer-reviewed, but most are. It's a good idea to check with your professor if they require the peer review criteria. Lucky for us, there's often a peer review limiter in many library databases that you can use to search for just this type of source. Take this example from MLA Bibliography. You can see right here in the advanced search page a checkbox for scholarly peer-reviewed sources. This option also shows up in the search results page among the limiting options on the left side here. There are a few other characteristics of scholarly sources you may notice as you read them. First, they may have some charts or graphs, but usually no ads or color graphics. They may have vocabulary that is very technical or specific to the field. There are lots and lots of citations and references. And they're often published by a university or scholarly organization. Of course, there are many more source types than just popular and scholarly, but we can often distinguish those also by the source's authors or even the source's purpose, which might be to inform, persuade, or analyze, for example. But there's one more source type you may come across in your research that could be new to you, and we'll highlight here: professional or trade sources. Professional or trade sources are written for practitioners in a certain field or career. You might think of publications for familiar professions like teaching or engineering, but there are professional sources for nearly every area of work. Professional or trade sources can vary widely in whether they include applied research, like for nursing or social work, or just industry news, product reviews, or career information. But the main thing you should know is that even though they're written by and for subject experts, they are not usually considered scholarly, because their intended audience is practitioners as opposed to researchers. So let's think about why this all matters for your research. Let's say my initial research question was something like, what are the impacts of climate change on the Great Lakes? First, I might look at a popular magazine like National Geographic to explain the bigger issues in an interesting and readable way, and maybe give me some ideas for how to narrow my pretty broad question. Or maybe I'll use this regional newspaper article, which is also considered a popular source, for human interest stories. Or maybe if I wanted to focus on the specific subtopic of rising water levels, this article from an urban and regional planning organization's trade journal, Planning, could help me understand some practical issues from the policy or infrastructure side. And then there's this article from a scholarly peer-reviewed source, the Journal of Great Lakes Research, which could be a great example of a scientific study, but if I'm not a science major, I might need to read it a couple of times. Each of these sources provide me with different types of information and may or may not be appropriate, depending on the given assignment or the course. Again, if your professor doesn't specify, make sure to ask their expectations or even requirements for source types you're allowed to use. You can also talk with a librarian for help discerning your research needs and the best sources for your topic and the project. You can chat with a librarian or schedule a research appointment today by visiting the Hekman Library website, library.calvin.edu. Also, check out our YouTube channel anytime to see our essential tech tip videos and learn more research basics with Hekman Research 101.